this profound prophecy in the Bible. It will surprise you that the Bible back in Malachi, the last book preceding the New Testament, speaking of the days of Christ, the judgment days of Christ, when Christ was to make his return and judge the earth. And hear what the prophet Malachi says. He says, behold, this is him saying what God has said. Behold, I'm going to send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. So this prophecy, this word is coming to the Israelites before Christ walked the earth. Hear that, right? Before we get to Christ walking the earth, he being born and him having a ministry and him going to the cross and being resurrected, this prophecy was being given unto us, the Israelites, right? If I would like to add that, unto us, right? You, me, my people, right? We've been destroyed because this right here is happening right now. So behold, I am going to send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. Now I want you to catch that, right? When Christ first came on the scene, it was a beautiful day. He said, I came what? Not to condemn the world, but to save the world. But something is happening here where he's saying it's going to be a great and terrible day when he comes this time. Why? Because just as the Bible said, as the days of Noah was going to be, nobody is going to be listening. Nobody's going to be living godly. The hearts of people will turn cold. They won't be. It says that the fathers will be against their son, and son against their father, and daughter against father, and daughter against mother, and mother against daughter. It said that it would be chaos and utter darkness, but all the while we would figure out a way to keep on living. You believe that? You believe that somehow with all the darkness going on in the world, the murders, the wars, the nations against nations, families falling apart, that somehow we will find a way to still be going on living life, just as in the days of Noah when the world was so horribly dark. It said that the earth grieved. Come on here. That the earth, the blood of the innocent in the earth was crying out to the heavens for God to come and judge the earth, because that's how much darkness was in the earth. Do you think it's possible that you could live in amongst darkness and it don't bother you? How you can live in a world that's full of sin and hate and diseases and drugs and abuse and rape and murder and abductions and kidnaps going on, and you ain't bothered one bit. Somehow you get up and it has no impact on you. I believe I live in a world today. It don't bother me that somebody died last night. It don't bother me that your kid is abducted and forced into sexual abuse, right? You ain't concerned about the people around you. That's what he talk about, a world where, guess what? Our hearts and minds are so dark and cold that we ain't even concerned about our neighbors, right? If it ain't happening to you or somebody you feeling dear to, it does not exist. But murder is happening every day. Rape is happening every day. Kids are being abducted every day. Epstein Islands is everywhere. You think it's just the P. Diddy parties, but it's happening all over the world. And your powers that be are in conclusion with it. They are part of the problem. But we're going to be worried about who president, who Trump, who Joe Biden. We worried about the P. Diddy going to go to jail or not. You know how many P. Diddy's there are? Your uncle is a P. Y'all ain't going to say nothing. You got kids where their uncles is P. Diddy. That baby daddy that's not their father don't love that daughter the way the father loves her, and he is a sexual abuser. This is a problem in the land. So he said that when God comes back to this place, it's going to be a great and terrible day. It will not be like when Christ first came, when Christ first revealed himself unto the world, where he came not to condemn, but to save, where he came to be a sacrifice, right? The Father, the love of the Father sent him here to what? Die for you, to give you an opportunity, right? He could have did it a different way, but he sacrificed and shed blood to pay the wages of sin and death that was on your life. And the Bible is declaring here that in spite of it all of the grace, all the sacrifice, we would still reject our God. Do you believe that that's happening today? I think if you turn on the TV, go on social media, you'll see that that's happening today. So he says that this coming will be great and terrible day of the Lord. Now catch this 6th verse. He says, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their father, right? He will reconcile them together, right? And produce a repentance amongst the fathers and the children to the fathers. Now you got to ask yourself, what happened or what's happening in the world that the father's heart will be turned away from his own children? Right? And then the children's heart will be turned away from their own father, right? Is it possible? Because guess what? Daddy ain't raising me. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing in here. Daddy left me. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. See, it's a little personal for me because I was raised in a fatherless home, right? I knew many men because my mama had many men. Y'all ain't gonna listen. I need some folks to understand. If you from this, you understand where my passion is coming from because I had many men come into my life, right? I knew my mama was married 5 times. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing in here. I know what it's like to be damaged by visitors. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. To have folk that don't really love you now have their hands in on your life, impact your quality of life, your state of mind, your being, right? I'm a product of this epidemic, right? Because my father did not realize who he really was to understand the power and authority that he had on making me. You understand what I'm saying in here? So we got a real issue out here because the world at large has made this okay. You ain't got to marry that woman. You ain't got to be in the house with that kid. You ain't got to raise him. You ain't got to suffer with him. You ain't got to toil with him. Who gonna protect the kid if there's no father there, right? Who gonna ensure that this little girl don't end up becoming something that's her own destruction because ain't no father there to say that's not the right way to go, right? Ain't no father there to now be a protector, a securer, right? To ensure that she's growing up with the right mind, that she's confident, she's ensured she knows love and not love from a boy, but a love of a father. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing in here. Or who's gonna protect that little boy, right? Who's now being raised by the world? He got to go to the streets to find out what it's like to be a man, and they gonna tell him all of the wrong things. You wonder why these boys get caught up in gang banging and drug dealing. Not all of these little boys had bad ideas. No, they went to a place where, guess what? They felt accepted. They felt like, man, they like me. They love me. They felt like somebody was mentoring them. They felt like somebody cared enough about them to show them something, right? Because they growing up in homes where ain't nobody teaching them nothing. The kids is raising themselves. But ain't nobody gonna sound the alarm and say we got a real problem here. Because everybody's a mama, everybody's a daddy, but the kid spend more time with the daggone YouTube and tablet than he does actually what? Learning and being cultivated and being taught by the two people that brought him into the world. We got ourselves a real issue. But don't nobody want to say nothing. So the Bible is speaking to a time where, guess what? There's an issue between fathers and their children and the children to their fathers, right? And he goes on to say that, listen, so that I will not come and strike the land with a curse. So you can interpret that to understand that if the father's hearts are not turned back to the children, if the children's heart are not reconciled back to the fathers, that we would be living actively under a curse, right? And if you understand that a curse cannot come without a cause. I got any Bible readers in here? I got people that understand this thing. You can't just be cursed just cause. No, there is something that's happening that brings you into agreement or brings you into position to be cursed. Does that make sense, right? So you ain't just cursed, but something is happening. Does anybody care what's happening that fathers' hearts are now turned away from their kids? That the hearts of the children are now turned away from the fathers. Let's take it a step further. So what is a father?